What's up, guys? Welcome back to Josh the Toy Doctor. My name, of course, is Josh, and today we are going to be unboxing another action figure. This time we're going to be looking at G.I. Joe Classified figure number 3. This is Destro. He is from Wave 1. Yes, I have not opened my Destro. I have had him since the launch of Wave 1, but with that, let's get him to the turntable, take a look at the package, and see what's inside.
So I'm quite a fan of the original G.I. Joe Classified Series packaging. The stuff we saw with the first few waves where we had this style of art on the back where it was almost like a movie poster with Cobra and G.I. Joe on the poster, and then kind of like a snapshot or a image of the character relative to the character. This one being Destro's face from the side of the box onto the front, and then just the huge window. I loved the fact that we could see everything that the figure came with. And then the side having the number, I thought that was really cool. It gave us multiple options for in-package collectors to be able to either face it with the art, the front of the figure, or have the number so they could quickly identify, no matter really which side they were looking at, which figure in their collection it was. And I thought that was really great. This Destro looks like it's going to be awesome, so I can't wait to get into the packaging.
Alright, now that Destro is back from the turntable, let's get that other camera, boom, slapped into place. That way you guys can see what's going on. We'll go ahead and get our trusty blade out, cut the bottom tape here, and get to what's inside the plastic prison, keeping Destro from the rest of Cobra's armies. Alright, let's go ahead and pop him open, get rid of that paper, pull him on out. Love the Cobra logo behind the box. That is just chef's kiss. It's a beautiful detail. But enough about the package. We already talked quite a bit about that. Let's go ahead and take a look at Destro himself. So we've got a few weapons for the head of Mars Weapons Development, and a briefcase for him, and of course the man himself, good old Chrome Dome Destro, who I would consider, for a large chunk of the series, the number 2 man in Cobra, and the ultimate arms dealer. Get rid of this plastic. Get that out of here. Get you guys zoomed in on the figure, take a look at him and his accessories. So let's go ahead and start with our man Destro himself. Interestingly enough, that necklace is attached to him. It does look like it should dump off, and it kind of moves around. Hard to show on camera. It does move around a little bit, but it doesn't seem to fit over his head, so that's a good thing. One less thing to lose from our pile of action figure accessories. Let's go ahead and start with the likeness. I think this is a good look. This really represents, I think, both Destro in the cartoon and a good classified reimagining. There isn't a lot you can change with him, although the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie kind of messed with him quite a bit. It didn't make Destro quite as cool, in my opinion. The nano mask was an interesting idea, but the effect left a lot to be desired. But in this case, I think his head sculpt and portrait are pretty dang good for a figure of this scale. I like the detail in the helmet. I think that's just a nice touch to the likeness. I'm trying to get it to zoom in. You may be able to see it. It's kind of hard to see, but he's got this nice level of detail where there's some seams in his helmet, which is pretty good. I really like that. He's got a nice holster here. It does attach to his belt, which is also free-floating, so that's kind of nice. But overall, I think the details are good, and he is a good representation of the character, even with just a little modernized spin on him. So all in all, I would say the likeness is a pretty solid 9. There's maybe a few minor details we could change up, but nothing that I would say, oh my god, it's not Destro, it's an abomination. Let's go ahead and move straight into mobility of the action figure, because of course that's one of the more important things, right? So we should go ahead and check that out. Let's take a look at the ankle joints here. Ooh, his are some of the smoothest, but yet clickiest. I like it. It clicks into positions, but his ankles move nicely. They tilt and pivot, as we've come to expect from the G.I. Joe Classified line. And same can be said for both of those. They do also have these nice boot swivel. You can get 360-degree rotation off of the boot on both legs. So that's a nice feature here. That way, if you need to have them spread their feet so that they can stand a little bit more easily and be posed a little bit more easily, you do have that option. As we've come to see on the majority of classified figures, it does have double jointed knees. So we'll go ahead and run those through their range of motion. These are actually a little stiff, but they're kind of that perfect level of stiffness where I think they're going to be able to hold a pose really nicely, but they're also not going to be overly difficult to move like we have seen with a few of the classified figures that I've reviewed. He can get into pretty good position. You can really put him into a kneeling or sitting back position if you wanted to quite easily with the articulation on the knees and the feet. Moving up Destro's body, as we do with mobility checks, we do have upper thigh twist as well. Can fully rotate his leg 360 degrees there. Now this leg we are going to lose a little bit of that just because of his holster rig. It will do it, but you do have to be kind of careful, and you might run the risk of stretching that out. I'm not going to mess with it too much because I think just because we can do it doesn't mean we need to. And for most poses that I think we're going to put Destro into, I don't think we need that full swivel on that upper thigh joint. And we do have the drop down hinge pin and ball joint there on the upper thigh, so you can get some really wild movement. This one is going to be a little bit difficult because that holster strap does impede the movement a little bit. You can bend it though. It is a nice softer plastic or maybe a heavier rubber. You can do that and it will move around. Unlike the classic 3.75-inch O-ring figures, this joint is not metal, it is plastic, so I do recommend exercising just a little bit of caution when you use those for posing. Rearward movement, we don't have a heck of a lot, and it's always because the shape of the butt of the character, it doesn't really lend well to rearward movement. Forward movement, however, we're going to use this leg again because that holster is going to get in the way of it a little bit and is going to flex, but it does give enough to get it out of the way, and you can get him up to a sweet high kick pose without any trouble. So if you want to have Destro trying to be a ninja or just doing a fancy dance, you can have him do that, or you can even have him do the splits if you so desire. So good leg movement on this figure. Let's move up a little bit higher to his waist. Now we do have this rubber belt here. It is, again, like I said, a heavier rubber, a lighter plastic, I'm not sure which. I can feel a joint here in the waist. We got enough that we can turn him. I don't want to push it any farther than that because I don't want to do any damage to my figure. And Destro is getting harder to come by than some of the newer figures, but I think we have enough of a torso articulation there at the waist to be good. Now, moving up from there, we've got his ab crunch, and he has got quite a bit. You can see Destro can lean down and really take a look at the floor if he wants to, or take a look back, and he can scream for Baroness all he'd like, and I think that's pretty good. You can even probably tilt him back a little bit more. You will have to have a stand doing that, though, because I think he'll run out of counterbalance there unless you really crank the arms around. But neither here or there. We'll talk about that more in the actual posing section. Moving on up the figure, we go to the shoulders. We have butterfly joints there in the shoulders. They are a little bit hard to show off, but they are there. They don't have a huge range of motion, but good enough to be able to give you some rotation in and out so you can get better grips on things and the like. You've also got 360-degree rotation on the shoulder ball, as well as the ability with the joint of the shoulder to put him straight up into a T-pose, so he can party down or, you know, act like a helicopter wherever you want, whatever craziness you want Destro to do. He can do it in the shoulders. That's pretty good. We also have that good old upper bicep twist, so that can move 360 degrees, a little bit out of the realm of reality, but it does give us some good mobility for an action figure. The joints, you will notice on this figure, are pinned, unlike some of the modern figures or some of the newer entries in the Classified series, and that's okay. On this figure, it isn't incredibly noticeable like it is on some of the ones who have bare arms or, you know, flesh-toned arms, but he does have double joints there. It is limited a little bit, partially because of the arm shape, I think partially just because of the size of the gap in the joints. and it is still good enough to get a pose in where Destro can be scratching his head if you so desire. Or if you took maybe Cobra Commander's hand off, you could maybe have him picking his nose if you so desired. But you do get some options there for what you can do with Destro's poseability due to his double jointed elbows. On the hands, we do only have one set of hands on the action figure, which is a big detractor for me. Number one in accessories, number two in appearance, because really, who sits with their hands like this all the time? I realize as somebody who collected 3.75-inch line, that's not as huge of a deal as it sounds like, but as somebody who has gotten into stuff like this in Hot Toys and higher end 1/6 scale collectibles, it is a little bit of a bummer to not see standard extra hands coming in the sets, even if it's just a set of fists and a set of open hands, so that way we're not just stuck with gun gripping. That would be great. So Hasbro, if you're listening, extra hands in the next releases, please. Going from there, though, we do have kind of the typical classified joint. It is just I've seen these on other 1/12 scale figures. I don't know if the pins fit, but it's got a little bit of a hinge here. Unfortunately, due to Destro's bracers, his hands don't hinge up and down quite as well as some of the other figures do, but it does still have that joint. So you can get a little teeny bit of that movement, but it's pretty hard to see on the figure. But you can twist it around 360 degrees. So if you want to have him shooting gangster style, by all means, go for it, because Destro is a gangster, especially when he's got Pimp Daddy Destro head on. Take a look for him later. Before we finish up, we can do the head. He can look left to right in basically natural motions. Can't go too much farther than that because of his popped collar. Up and down, we are extremely limited, unfortunately, on the down, but the up, we can get a little bit of upward. So if Destro wants, he can stare up into the stars. But downward, we don't get much more than flattening his chin out, which is unfortunate because there isn't much of a lower neck joint to speak of. All in all, in flexibility, I would say I would give him a flat 8 out of 10 because of the neck not having lower neck flexibility and not having a good flexibility in the hands. Those are two kind of spots that are tough. But overall, I think he's got good enough flexibility to get him into a variety of poses where he can look good. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and throw him over to the turntable, go through a few of the quick poses that I decided to try out with this figure, and then we'll go into his accessories.
So this Destro has a lot of good accessories that lend to giving him multiple poses and giving you multiple options for scenes with other characters. And I just like this, like I'm defending the case and trying to get where I'm going, or I've been double crossed pose. And it just looks really good with Destro. He's nice and flexible. The joints are really good, as we talked about earlier, and just everything lends really well to him posing, and the colors on the figure really pop against each other. So you've got the black and you've got like that stark contrast with the silver helmet, the silver belt, and the red accessories. I think that looks really nice. We'll get on to the next pose here. So this second pose, this is actually a creation of my son's. He collects G.I. Joe Classified as well, and he is just a young kid, but he has gotten into it because of Dad. And so we were talking about how you tell a story with your poses around the shelf. And so his story with this is that Cobra Commander was trying to rip off Destro, and Destro got the draw on him too. And so it's just kind of a fun pose using multiple figures. We're telling a little bit of a story, and we can probably add a little bit more life to this by making Cobra Commander a little bit more dynamic. But it's one of those things that I kind of talked over with my son, is telling a story in every one of our poses. And, you know, I feel like what posing session of Destro would be complete without some kind of visit from the Baroness? So I felt like this embrace was good. Unfortunately, as I was adjusting it, and I didn't double check this as I started to film, the hand placement on the back kind of got wonked out. Her hand is supposed to be a little closer to the small of his back, and her other hand is supposed to be just a little closer inside the hood, but on the turntable, they started to move out of position just a little bit from that movement. But I really like this pose, and I thought it was one of those kind of non-battle scenes that really is a...
Now that we've got Destro back from posing, let's talk about his accessories. He is a little bit light on accessories, in my opinion. I think we could have used a little bit more with him. Now, granted, this was early on in the Classified line when they were only, I think, $19.99. I may be mistaken on that pricing. It might have even been $15. I can't remember. But it was a lower price point and better than it was today. So what we're getting for accessories is we got two weapons. We got a golden pistol and a larger mid-size pistol, I would call it. Interestingly enough, I don't recall either of these weapons specifically from another Destro. I think the Destro that I had as a kid came with the standard Cobra style blaster that a lot of the Cobra action figures did. I don't think it was anything different or specific. On top of that, he does come with what I would consider a very nicely detailed briefcase. We're going to go ahead and focus in on this, please. And it's got the Cobra logo on it, good detail. It's got a nice silver handle, some details on it that do set it apart from just a plain black briefcase. So I do like that. I do believe this opens. There is a hinge and a nice crack here. I'm going to see if this will open. Oh yeah, for sure it does. So it opens up, and unfortunately it lacks some detail in here. The money from a distance looks okay, but there's like no printed face on it or anything like that that would give it any detail. And there is a little Cobra computer in here, which again leaves quite a bit to be desired. The buttons are raised, but there's no real detail to speak of outside of the molding. So that's unfortunate. I think a little bit of paint app or maybe stickers would have gone a long way to making this a little bit better looking. But I think paint apps would have been the preferred, because at least we do have the Cobra symbol in there again. But the money doesn't look as good. I think this is actually a prime candidate. If you are a figure modifier, this is a great candidate for modification. You could potentially put in some fake action figure money you can get. You could probably just put some of that in here and that would look better. And then on top of that, maybe just give it a little bit of wash in there just to, and I'm going to pop it back open here, just to fill in some of the lines there, so in case you do pick that up. The keyboard is good enough, but with the screen just being green on the computer, I think they could have added a little bit more detail there. Again, it is what it is. For a $20 action figure, I don't want to complain a whole lot. I do think it is a cool accessory for Destro and matches his role within Cobra. So for accessories, I'm going to say this is a 7 out of 10. It's a decent set of accessories. They're fitting of Destro. They have a decent enough level of detail with the red and black on this, and the Cobra coloring, the different colored handle, and then having the money and things inside where it could have just been a solid case and not opened up. I think that keeps the score high enough, but I think those few extra steps could have gone a little ways, and then adding just some additional equipment, or maybe making this have like a clip to go and be a backpack as well, since they did give us a backpack peg on Destro. Overall value of the figure, I start to tend to lean toward thinking about the modern figures a little bit more, and the most recent wave out, I believe, was like Zorana, Sergeant Slaughter, Dusty, and those ones have an increased price point, and after that the price point has even gone up. So I feel like we're losing value, but comparatively this figure has better value. I would still say the value isn't quite there, as we don't have enough accessories to really justify the $20 price tag. At a $15 price tag, I wouldn't be as critical of it, but I'm going to say maybe an 8 on the accessories and value, just because we don't get any extra hands or anything like that. We don't get a battle stand, and they were included with the retro card back figures, so to not see that with the standard release is a little bit disappointing, seeing as they come in right at the same price point. I would say if you're looking today, I would go for the retro card back Destro instead of trying to hunt down this one, unless you really are a completionist. I think they're basically the same figure with a little bit of color difference, but that one comes with the battle stand. So I do think of the two variants of this Destro that you can get, getting the battle stand retro card back is the better one. There is another variant of Destro, but we'll go into that in another video. And guys, if you're interested, I do regular reviews on G.I. Joe classified figures. or news for Classified. Anything G.I. Joe related is going to be in this playlist right here. And up above, you can check out any of the other videos that I do. It's going to be my most recent release. I do stuff about Lego, stuff about Hot Toys, stuff about Star Wars. Really any other action figure line from the 1980s is stuff that kind of attracts me, and sometimes just cool custom action figures or other props that go good with your action figures. Thanks for watching, guys.